Hello, everybody. I pray that you all are well and blessed and highly favored. Welcome to the Lady Flint's next installment. Listen, I have a great guest with me today. A great guest. I'm telling you, a beautiful, beautiful story. It inspired me, and I'm sure it will inspire you all. So before we get started, I just want to say thank you, Diaspo TV, for having such a beautiful show as this and all the rest of the shows. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Thank you, Mr. Donald, and everyone in their respective places. So today I have, drum roll, Mr. Mason.
Yes. Yes.
Hey, Mr. Mason. How are you?
I am blessed to be in your presence. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so sweet. You just
highly favored.
Highly favored. And I wish that for everybody. So,
Yes.
Including my enemies, but that's another story.
Amen. Amen.
For real.
Amen.
That's what the Bible says. So anyway, let's get started. Tell us your name and where you're from and your current job and how long have you been in that job?
Yes, my name is Mason Hegenbart. I am from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I work for a treatment center for substance abuse and mental health called We Level Up. And I'm an admissions coordinator, and I've been in that field for a little over 2 years now.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to go and ask the question, what does your job entitled? What are your daily routines that you have? How do you go about your job? How does it work?
Yeah, so as an admissions coordinator, my job is to get people to treatment and from treatment. So we get them into the facility. So we have detox reses, which is substance abuse, people that are struggling with drugs or alcohol, and then we have mental health facilities. So people that are strictly just mental health, no substance abuse. And so on a day-to-day basis, I get my headset on and I talk to the person that's struggling. I go over their insurance, find out what they're struggling with, and then find the best treatment center that is for them, that works out suitable with them.
Okay. Now, you said you talked to them about the insurance. What if they don't have insurance? What is your next step?
Yeah, so if they don't have insurance, we utilize private pay routes. So there is options for people that have Medicaid or Medicare, Medi-Cal, that's through the state government. They have private pay rates that they can have if they don't have private health insurance.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So there's still help for people even if they don't have health insurance. There's still options.
Right. Now, I heard you say that you do the mental health maybe separate, and then if they have drugs and alcohol, what if they have a little bit of both? Will you put them in the same facility, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's called dual diagnosis, someone that struggles with both mental health and substance abuse. So for the majority of it, when someone struggles with substance abuse, there usually is some underlying issues.
Right.
Like anxiety.
Because I would think, not cutting you off,
Yeah.
I would think that sometimes when people are struggling with drugs and alcohol, there's another lining that they may be doing that to mask whatever is going on. I feel the same way about eating. I just like to eat. That's just.
I do too.
But I think there's something else going on, and if you don't address that issue, I mean, it's still going to be there. So that's just my take on it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct, and that's the underlying issues. For so long, I wondered why I did these things, why I was using drugs, why I was drinking, and there was underlying issues. I struggled with anxiety, depression, and that's simply why some people use drugs or alcohol. Some people just like the effects produced by the drugs or alcohol, and that's why they use it. And then for some people, there's some underlying issues, maybe some abuse as a child, right? Maybe something happened to them that they're using those drugs and alcohol to cope with it. So it's not one shoe fits all. There's so many different ways to go around this.
Exactly, because I may be struggling with something and you have never experienced that and can't relate to me. So I don't think that you should put everybody under one umbrella, because this person may need this type of help and the other person may need something else, more extensive or whatever. I mean, I'm not a counselor, but...
Well, it sounds like you might be.
No. I mean, I worked in, not making this about me, but I worked in public health for 15 years. But I just basically, I just know how to treat people. I just don't judge people because I'm not perfect. You know what I'm saying? And I can't say, well, I wouldn't have done that. You don't know what you're going to do if you're in that type of situation. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's just my personal take on it. So with you doing that, how long is the treatment? Do they stay in-house or do they go back into the environment, back to a home or to their house? How do you treat these issues?
So with us, it's a residential level of care. So it's inpatient, 30 days. So for the detox, for the drugs and alcohol, it's substance abuse. On that side, it's still 30 days. The mental health side is 30 days. So you'd be with us for a total amount of 30 days. And then you would go to a PHP, which is partial hospitalization, and then you would go to an IOP, which is intensive outpatient. So there's different levels to this. So with us, it's a little bit more strict. They take your cell phone away. There's some more rules, but the longer you stay, the more freedom you get. But to answer your question, with us is a total of 30 days.
And that's even if they have dual situations, is the mental health and the drug and alcohol, is only 30 days.
Yes, with us. So even if you're dual diagnosis, which would be substance abuse and mental health, no matter which route you're doing, with us, it's going to be 30 days, yes.
Do you think that's enough time?
So when
it's just only like, 1 month?
Yeah, so if you're struggling with drug addiction, right, and you're using drugs for your whole life, we simply just get you off of the substances, which is the hardest part, because you have to get on medications. We taper you off with other medications, and you're getting rid of these toxins. And then you meet with a counselor therapist once or twice a week. So it's a slow progression. I'm 2.5 years in this, Lady Flint, and I'm still doing counseling and therapy. So this isn't something that you're just going to get healed from in 30 days.
No.
This is a long progression.
I think it's a lifetime of issues that you have to deal with, and you got to know the triggers and stuff like that. Maybe different things trigger people or whatever. But 30 days, wow. So once they do the intense, I've heard you say that they do intense. They said they do all of that in that facility. And are these doctors and got to be psychotherapists or psychologists, right?
So you'll get a psychiatric evaluation. They have nurses on site that administer medications.
It's got to be around
24 hours.
Yeah.
Because there's some people that, for example, myself, I used Xanax for 8 years and I came off of it for the first time. So there was a lot of withdrawal symptoms, right? Shakes, tremors, seizures, different kinds of things. So they have to have people on site to look at you throughout the night and make sure everything goes as planned.
Wow.
Yes.
Now I heard you say, you brought it up, know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I heard you say that you were on medications for anxiety. How, if you don't mind telling your story, how did you get started with that? I remember you, when I was talking to you, you were telling me that you were a pitcher, and I couldn't understand how a doctor did not pick up that you were an addict. But once you tell the story. Yeah,
so it wasn't just Xanax that I was using. It wasn't just benzos. I used pretty much all of it towards the end of my career of using. But at the beginning of using drugs, I was about 17 or 18, and I was pitching in a high school baseball game. I went home to my family, and I said, I'm having anxiety. I'm pitching in this game, and I just have all this emotion that's not normal.
Heart racing
and just anxiety.
Were you shaking with it, too, or just the heart rate?
Mind going everywhere. I just felt different, like I've never felt that before. So I go meet with my family doctor, and they prescribed me 0.25 milligrams of alprazolam Xanax. And I took the pill, and I felt this relief of everything. Everything kind of just went away.
Let me ask you something. I'm just curious. My curiosity. Spider senses are tingling.
Yes.
So when you said that you took it, how long did it take? Did it work right away, the medication? It worked right away?
Instantly.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what it does. It's for people that are, sometimes for some people are going through a seizure or have an anxiety attack where they're uncontrollable. And this pill made me feel relaxed.
Wow,
and
instantly.
Instantly. And so I felt this relaxation, and it was off. it was on. I was like, I need more of this. And that's when my addiction really started to take off. I didn't start losing things. You couldn't tell I was an addict,
Right.
but the effects started to play. And that's how it kind of started to trickle down.
Okay, so you said effects. Can you explain those effects if you don't mind?
Yeah, so I played 4 years of college baseball at a very high level all across the country, from Minneapolis, Minnesota to South Dakota to California to Oklahoma. And so I went to 5 different colleges in 4 years. I graduated with a bachelor's in sports management. And throughout those years, I would be jumping states and running from different kinds of things, like using drugs. And I wasn't just using the Xanax. I'd be partying out drinking. I'd crash my car.
Oh my gosh.
But I always put on this facade, right? You would look at me and you'd say, this kid's got it together. He's got it going on. But internally, heartbreak. I was hurting.
Wow.
And I was using these drugs to mask
the feeling.
the feeling. And so as time went on, I became this person that I didn't know. I would look at myself in the mirror and say that I don't even know this person, because the drug use got so severe.
Oh God, because that's what I couldn't figure out. I'm like, if your doctor is giving you this medication, how does he not know that he had to up the dosage? I'm like, this is like pain management when you're going to the doctor and you're going to the same doctor. But once you explained to me that you was not going to the same doctor, that's how you were smart.
Yes.
Because that's how you, and like you said, you were so heavy into your addiction.
Yes.
That, you would lie and everything else I see what you're saying.
And I would get it, not just from the first time I took it was at 18, but eventually I started getting it off the streets. I started selling it. A couple of my buddies got lucky in Bitcoin, which was this online currency, and we started getting it through there. And I would do anything I could to get this drug, because it did the exact opposite for me. It actually gave me energy and gave me a boost. So I would wake up in the morning, we're getting real here, I would wake up in the morning about an hour. I would wake up an hour before my alarm would go off in the morning, just to take the pill so I would wake up high, ready to go throughout the day. It was something that I had to have in my system.
Right, it was an addiction. Yeah,
a full blown out.
Now, how many pills would you take a day, if you didn't mind me asking?
Towards the end of it, I was taking 8 to 12 milligrams. An average person that's prescribed it is prescribed 0.25. So I was taking 10 times the amount I should have been taking, if I should have been taking it at all. So the reason why I like talking about this is because you see an addict and you're thinking of a homeless person. For some people.
Yeah.
But there's drug addicts like me that was successful playing college baseball at a high level and using drugs daily.
You have people that are in high positions that make a lot of money, make good money, that are addicts. I always say drugs, alcohol, they don't have a particular stipulation on people, and maybe that's the wrong word, but what I'm saying, it looks just like me and you. Nobody, it doesn't discriminate, is what I'm saying. That's the word I'm looking for. It doesn't discriminate. Anybody could be an addict. You know what I'm saying? But you're right. A lot of people think, like we see homeless people now, they, oh, well, I ain't going to give them nothing, because if I give them money, they going to go buy drugs. But you don't know that.
No.
And it might be true 9 times out of 10. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But you're right. You can't look at it like judging a book by the cover. Because you, like you said, you're a high-end pitcher, traveling all over the world, and you were an addict. Now, when did you knew that you were an addict.
Yes.
But when did it really get out of control? Can you just tell us that? When did it really get out of control to the point where you knew that you knew that you needed help, but when you actually got tired of running? What was your breaking point?
So I graduated college.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yes. So
I'm sorry.
No.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked that question.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
So I graduated college, and I got into the auto industry with Ford and Lincoln vehicles, and selling cars, financing vehicles, and I was making really good money. I had a beautiful home, I had a beautiful car, I had the newest watch, I had everything that society makes of someone that's doing the right thing. Successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hollow. And I had reached the potential. I thought that was my max. I had all these beautiful things, but I wasn't happy. And so I hit this peak of what next. And so I was towards the end of it, I started to lose my home. I started to lose my car. There was one night I went to I was having a rough night. I went to work and I prayed to God and I said, God, this is the first time I ever really had it. They call it foxhole prayer. And I said, God, if you're real, give me a sign you're there. Otherwise, I'm going to have to leave this world. And listen, so I pray this prayer. The next day, I sell a car, and I think that God had answered my prayers because I sold a vehicle and I had gotten some money to keep my feet on the ground. And I didn't know who God truly was, right? So I get back home, and I'm left with myself in this home. All the electricity shut off. I'm about to be homeless. I come from a beautiful family, a mom and dad that love me to the end of the world. Both successful business people. And I just couldn't tell someone that I was struggling. I couldn't admit to someone that I was an addict.
So you could, but your parents knew that you were an addict, correct?
Yeah, they knew.
Or they had an idea.
Yeah, but I could never admit it. My ego.
You couldn't admit it to yourself.
No,
right.
My ego was way too high.
Yeah.
And so I knew that if I would have told my mom and dad, I'm a drug addict and I need help, they would have done everything. They would have got me into a treatment. They would have done everything to get me help. So I was pushed in this corner by God. I just kept getting pushed to getting worse and worse and worse by God saying, you need to humble yourself and ask for help. And so I kept going on with my same Mason stuff. And towards the end of it, I had no home, no car. And I was pushed in a position to call my mom and ask for help. Granted, she knew I was struggling, and she would always ask me if I needed help, but I could never admit to her. So I finally admitted to her. And it was like, when I admitted that I struggled, it admitted that I had issues, it was like God came in the room and blew all the pictures off the wall, and I felt this wind of presence of God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when things started to get better, is when I finally admitted that I had a problem.
And that's the first, I like to eat, but my thing, but serious talk, I think that's the first thing to recovery, is admitting that you have a problem. And I don't care who you are, how much money you make, what's your status, what goes around comes around, and God will humble you.
Yes.
He will humble you.
Yes.
So that's why the same people you see up, you're going to see them coming down.
Yes.
So my mother always told me, God rest her soul, she said, be careful how you treat people. And I say, talk about them too.
Yes.
So, but anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
No, that was beautiful. The golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And my mom taught me that from a really young age.
Yeah. And I mean, and I just think it's called life. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I never look down, and I still don't do it. I don't look down on people who took a different path. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's called life. Everybody is not as strong. Everybody, some people have, I don't know, I've heard people say that there's a thing called addictive personality and everything like that. What is your take on that? Especially when it comes to drugs.
When it comes to drugs, I think everybody's different, obviously.
Yeah.
I think that I have an addictive personality because from a young age I was always trying to try beer when parents weren't looking, trying to drink when parents weren't looking. I was always trying to just feel something.
Gotcha.
But I just think it's super important that people understand that, yes, number one is that you ask for help when you are going through something, right? Because if you go to the doctor's office and you have something wrong with you, and the doctor's saying, what's wrong with you, and you're trying to hide it, how's that doctor supposed to find exactly what's wrong? So you have to ask for help and show them exactly what you're going through.
That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. I totally agree with it. And I've heard older people say, I shouldn't say this, they'll say, well, they supposed to need a doctor. I'm like, yeah, but they're not a mind reader.
Yes.
You have to tell them, for your symptoms and everything.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right. So once you asked for help, where did it go from there?
Yeah, so Towards the end, obviously, it was really dark, and I went back to Wisconsin. So I was living in Oklahoma after I graduated college. Rewind. Graduated college, was selling cars in the car industry. Things started to get bad. Lost my home, lost my car. Called my mom. I got on a plane that day, Felicia. I called my mom. I said, this is what's going on. She helped me, got on a plane. I flew to Wisconsin. And we kind of just sat down as a family to come up with a game plan. I told my mom I was struggling. Told my dad I was struggling. They had an idea, obviously. But I kept using. And I kept using drugs around the family, my little sister, all the kids, because I couldn't put it down. Towards the end of it, well, this is what really flipped the switch. My dad went out of town to go see my grandpa, he was not doing well at all. He was on his way out.
Well,
God rest his soul, yeah.
I'm
And so I had taken these Xanax for 8 years, I'm sorry, and had taken so much of them. So my dad went out, I took even more, and I went into a psychosis, which means that for some people they start visually hallucinating, seeing different things that aren't there. And so I called 911 on myself, and the police showed up. And the police showed up at my house, and they put me into a psych hold for 24 hours, about 4 hours away from my family. And I'd never been arrested, never been in legal trouble my whole life. And this was finally a place where I could be at, where I could realize that what I was doing was damaging not only myself, but the people around me. And so I was in this psych ward, and they were starting to detox me for the first time off of Xanax in 8 years.
Now, was that your main drug, Xanax?
Yes, that was my main source, yeah.
And if you couldn't get the Xanax, if you don't mind me asking, what was your other drug? If you couldn't get the Xanax?
Any drug that I could get my hands on, because the withdrawals were so severe. When you're used that high of dose, 8 to 12 milligrams for that long, and if you take that Xanax away, you will do anything to get that high again. And so I would go to heroin, I would go to methamphetamine, I would go to cocaine, whatever I could get my hands on to make sure that I didn't go through a severe withdrawal. Because some people, when they use that dosage for that long, you can die from not having that.
Because the body needs it.
Exactly.
Wow.
So I was in this psych ward, and they were detoxing me, and the lady's asking me, what have you been using? And I'm like, I couldn't admit it. I couldn't admit it.
You still couldn't
I was still hitting myself over the head.
That's usually how it is. Wow. You still couldn't admit it. After all of that.
Mm-mm. My pride was so high. I couldn't.
Wow. But look at you now.
Yes. Yes. And there's glory that comes out of this, of course.
Yes, of course.
And so I go back to my family. We sit down as a team, my mom, my dad, and we find a treatment. We get on the phone with somebody, and we find a treatment center down here in Florida. It's called We Level Up, the company I work for now.
What a blessing.
2.5 years later, I'm working for them. I did the detox. I did the sobriety thing. I got on a plane, and this song called Happier goes, I want you to be happier. I want you to be happier. Me and my mom listened to that song on the way to the airport when she dropped me off, and we listened to that song like 3 or 4 times over and over again. And I knew that I was on the right path when things started to play out.
So when did you finally admit it?
I got a sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous, someone that takes you through the steps to show you, different steps. Like the first step is admitting that you're powerless and different things like that. I admitted to my sponsor that I was a drug addict and an alcoholic, and I poured out all these things to him of my past, all the drugs I've used, all the people I've harmed, all these wrongdoings that I made, and I poured it out on homework, pieces of paper. And that's when I finally was set free. And the obsession to use drugs and alcohol has been lifted from me. I'm still a drug addict and alcoholic, but the obsession has been lifted from me.
And that's a blessing, because you feel free.
Yes.
Wow. So tell us, in 5 seconds, where do you see yourself? Because I know this is your passion. You told me you had a passion for country music. So tell me, in 5 seconds, all of, where do you see yourself? And I know country music is one of them, so you can talk about that in 5 seconds.
So I'm currently a praise and worship leader at my church 2.5 years later. Thank you, God. But in 5 seconds, I believe that I'll be singing in front of thousands of people in a stadium singing country music, which God has put a vision in me to do.
There it is.
Yes.
There it is. There it is. So tell us, is there a website they can find your job? So if someone needs help, could you give the website and the phone number?
Yes. So it's WeLevelUp.com. There's facilities in multiple different states all over the country. You just have to call that 1-800 number. Go to WeLevelUp.com. And there's a 1-800 number on there. You just have to go online and type it in. There's a Facebook page, Instagram. You just have to type in WeLevelUp.com, call the 1-800 number, and you'll get connected with somebody. That'll point you in the right direction.
Okay. So you're located where? Where's your facility?
So I'm at the corporate office, which is in Deerfield, Florida. And then there's facilities all throughout Florida. So, but my facility that I'm currently at, which is like the call center, the insurance room, alumni team, that's in Deerfield, Florida.
Do they all have call rooms or just your facility?
Just the facility in Deerfield, and they do all of the call centers. They do the call centers for all the facilities across the country. So we do all of we have facilities in California, New Jersey, and Washington.
And you do all of those?
We do all of those too.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So they just call that number, and they could be calling from Arkansas somewhere and get that number.
And if you want to get out of state of Florida, there's facilities out of state that we have.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, now give that number again, the website, and we're going to call it a night.
Yep. WeLevelUp.com, and there's a 1-800 number on the website. You just have to click on, and they'll point you in the right direction. I also have an Instagram, a TikTok, and a Facebook, and that's under Mason Hegenbart. So type in Mason, like the jar, M-A-S-O-N, Hegenbart, H-E-G-E-N-B-A-R-T. And I have a TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram with beautiful singing videos that you guys can check out.
Okay. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mason. And we are so glad, and thank you again, Diaspora TV. Thank you, Mr. Allen. And thank you, Mr. Donald. Thank you for having a beautiful show as this. So you guys be well, stay blessed, kings and queens. And remember, who loves you? God loves you, and we do too. Thank you again, Mr. Mason. I love
Thank you. Love you too.
Mwah. God bless. Let's say good night. Good night.
New day gon' come.